Okay, so here's algebra. We've got Unit 4, writing functions, day 1 still. We're just continuing that day 1. So letter C here, we are talking about, so we're going to read this first. A line passes through 2530. A second point on the line has a value, an x value of 100%, 120% of the x value, and 66.6% of the y value of point A. So use point A to write an equation of the line in point slope form. So essentially, we've got point A is 2530. Point B, well, the x value, it says here, the x value is 120% of 25. So 120% of 25. And the y value is 66.6% of the y value, 30. Okay, well, luckily we know how to take this. We know that 120% of 25 is just, we move that decimal twice, 1.2 times 25. Okay, so I can use my calculator, I can do that. I could also think about what I know. I know that 100% of 25 is 25. I also know that 20% of 25 is 5. So I know it's going to be 30, but really I can check my work. I can use that calculator. And I can say 1.2 times 25 is 30. Okay? And then this is 2/3 of 30, right? So 2/3, because that's what 66% is 20. Now I can check my work, so I can go 0.666 times 30, right? So 0.666, really that's repeating, times 30, so 19.98. We're going to round up and go to 20, all right? Okay, so now I've got these 2 points, and I need to write a function. So the first thing that I'm going to do is find, with my 2 points, the slope. So remember, slope is my change in y, so y minus y, y1 minus y2, x1 minus x2, right? So I'm going to take one of these y's. Let's go 30 minus 20, right? So my y's 30 minus 20. And since I started with 30, I've got to start with 25. 25 minus 30. Let's see. X, Y, did I do that right? Y, X, Y, yep. All right. So we've got 20, 30 minus 20, and 25 minus 30 is -5. And 10 divided by -5 is a -2. So my slope is -2. Now I'm not given my y-intercept, so I have to find my y-intercept. Well, if I use y equals mx plus b, I need to figure out, so if I want to solve for this plus b, I need to plug something in for y, m, and x. Well, I have m right there, right? And then I have an x and y here, and I have an x and y here. So which one of these do you think would be best to use? Maybe you think that this would be best to use because it's more accurate. Okay, and maybe because this wasn't given exactly 2/3, you think maybe 20 isn't as accurate. But I like to use the easy numbers first. The easy numbers because it's just easier math. Why work harder when you can work smarter? So I'm going to plug in 30 for my x and 20 for my y. So 20 equals, my slope is -2, times my x, which is 30, plus b. And I'm going to solve for this. So -2 times 30 is -60 plus b equals 20. I'm going to go ahead and move this work right here. So I've got 20 equals -60 plus b. Okay, so I just took that and moved it right up. Still, I got to solve for b. So I'm going to add 60. I'm going to add 60. And there we go. 80 equals b. So now I've got my y and I've got my b. So when writing y equals mx plus b, I've got y equals -2x plus 80. That is my slope-intercept there. Now, down here we've got excluding hydropower, U.S. power plants used renewable energy sources to generate 1 105 million megawatt hours of electricity in 2007. By 2012, the amount of electricity generated had increased to 219 million megawatts an hour. Write a linear model that represents the number of megawatt hours generated by a non-hydropower renewable energy source as a function of the number of years since 2007. Use the model to predict the number of megawatt hours that will be generated in 2017. So first we want to find what our ordered pairs are, essentially. So if I've got an x and a y, my x values and my y values. What are my x and my y values? I want you to think about that for a minute. Okay. So we've got our years down here, right? So I started at, what's my year 0? My year 0 would be 2007, right? And then my next year is what? Okay, my next year is 2012. And that's how many years later? 5, correct? Okay. And then my next year is 2017, right? And that's what we're not given. Okay, and that's 10 years later, correct? All right, now what are my y's? Think about what my y's are. Go ahead and press pause so you can give it time to think. And it should be megawatts, right? And megawatts, is it 219 megawatts? Nope, it's 219 million, right? So it's by the millions, okay? Now we're going to find our ordered pair, and that's going to help us plot this. Okay, so at year 0, the year I started, do you think I'm going to write the year as 2007? Nope, we're going to year it as 0 because that's the year we started. Okay, and that's when we were at 105. Okay, and then the next one, the next year is 2012. So again, we're not using 2012. We're using 5 years in. We were at 219, right? So now I can graph that. At year 0, I was at 105. So I'll count by 100s, 200s, 300s, right? So right above 100, right above it, okay? And then the next one would be 5 and 219, right? So right above that 219. Okay, so we are projected to grow, correct? So now I get to write a linear equation. So I've got to write y equals mx plus b. Let's see, what do I know? Do I know my plus b? I do know my y-intercept, right? So I do know that's going to be plus 105, right? Because at the y-intercept, x is always 0. All right, so now what do I have to find? Because the x stays and the y equals, I need to find my slope. So we're going to go ahead and find that slope. And with those 2 points, it's the change in y and it's the change in x, just like we did up here. Okay, so let's take y, 219 minus 105, all over, so I took 219 minus 105, so 5 minus 0. All right, and we've got 219 minus 105 is 1, just kidding, 14. And 5 minus 0, right? So that is my slope. So you could use it just like that. 114 over 5. You could also reduce that. You can make it down to 1. And we'll talk more about what slope means and how to interpret that slope a little bit more. And actually, I'd like you to think about what this means. So if we've got 114 over 5, like what does that slope mean? Because this is our equation. But what does this mean? So 114 represents our y value, right? That's the change in y. And this is the change in x. So think about what our y values all equal. Megawatts, right? And our x values represent the years, right? So sorry, this should be labeled years. So what does this mean? This means we've got for every 5 years, we use 114 megawatts. Okay. And you could reduce, right, to figure out how many for 1 year? All right. Thanks a lot.